Welcome to Holston Valley Unitarian Universalist Church. I'm the Reverend Tiffany Anderson, the minister of this church, and my pronouns are she and her. And I am very glad to be with you on this very special Sunday. Before we get going into the service, I need to share some very important information with you all. It appears that we had a little COVID outbreak in our congregation last Sunday. At our last count, 12 people from our congregation are out sick right now. That's why we have a sign encouraging masks. It's why I'm wearing a mask anytime I'm not up here at the pulpit. And also, we're not singing today to be extra safe. And I'd like to encourage you all to spread out if you'd like to take the extra precaution, and it looks like you're actually doing that already, so good job. So balancing our community needs is challenging during these times, which is why we always have our YouTube option for people who are feeling unwell and for people who are especially vulnerable. Thanks so much for hanging in there with us. And if you decide that you need to get up and leave now or during the first song and watch us on YouTube later, everyone's going to totally understand you doing what you need to stay safe. For those of you who can say, I am glad to say, good morning, neighbor. Good morning. In a world of infinite sources on our quest for truth and meaning, the life and work of Fred Rogers has a lot to teach us about building the beloved community whose building blocks are empathy, kindness, and love. If you are visiting us for the first time today, you are especially welcome. Welcome to our neighborhood. Our greeters at the welcome table by the door can help you get oriented if you have any questions. If you have little ones, our greeters can show you the way to the nursery, which is available during the service for children ages 6 and younger. Though we do feel like this service might just be one that appeals to our youngest neighbors. Please be aware that our services are filmed and posted on YouTube, and there's a chance that you might be seen in our YouTube videos. If you want to make sure that you are not on camera, please sit in the perfume-free zone or in the section closest to the back table and the library. Even though we're not singing today, through the magic of technology, we will get to enjoy some musical clips from Mr. Rogers. So for just a moment, let's pretend like we're sitting at home in our PJs with a bowl of way too sugary cereal in front of us. This is the gospel according to Fred Rogers from his commencement address at Marquette University. One day, I was privileged to sit in on one of Yo-Yo Ma's master cello classes. Now, Yo-Yo is one of the greatest appreciators of our world. It seems that people always walk taller after they've had an encounter with him. The only thing that's larger than his talent is his heart. At any rate, during the master class, one young man was struggling with the tone of a certain cello passage. He played it over and over, and Yo-Yo listened with obvious interest. Finally, Yo-Yo said, "No one else can make the sound that you make." The young man looked at Yo-Yo Ma and beamed. What a gift those words were, not only to the cellist, but to everyone who was there. Nobody else can make the sound that you make. Well, nobody else can live the life that you live. And even though no human being is perfect, we always have the chance to bring what's unique about us to live in a redeeming way. Beside my chair in my office is a framed piece of calligraphy with a sentence from Saint-Exupéry's book, The Little Prince. It reads, "What is essential is invisible to the eye." I feel the closer we get to knowing and living the truth of that sentence, the closer we get to wisdom. What is essential about you that is invisible to the eye? And who are those who have helped you become who you are today? Let us sit with these questions together in the quiet.
Good morning, neighbors. I am Sarah, and I use the pronoun she, her, and I am your service leader today. I grew up on Mr. Rogers and often looked forward to riding the trolley to the land of make-believe. We welcome you to this place where our values of justice, equity, and love inspire us to be good neighbors to each other. We welcome you to this place where our principle of the inherent worth and dignity of every person is evident in every word that Fred Rogers speaks and sings. Will you join me by saying the words of our vision statement with me, which are printed in your bulletin, as we light the chalice together? We work together as a church to transform ourselves, our community, and our world by sharing love, pursuing justice, and seeking wonder. Today, we are all kids at heart, so we are not asking anyone to come down front for a time for all ages. However, if any of our kids or kids at heart have an offering for the Kids Special Helping with Hunger project, you can bring them on down here to this basket during this next song.
Mr. Rogers says that we're all good at something, and we all have things we can be proud of about ourselves. Sometimes in life, we set the bar too high for what we should be proud of. There are days when I want to look in the mirror and say, I'm proud of you, just for getting out of bed in the morning. That's worth being proud of. All of us are good at things. I'm good at tying my shoes. I'm good at playing with my dog. I'm good at making a grilled cheese sandwich. There are lots of things to be proud of. Think about it. What are you good at? Maybe they're big, but it's even better if they're small. The little things that we forget to appreciate. Those are the things that Mr. Rogers always noticed and appreciated. What are you proud of yourself for? They don't have to be big deal things, when some days just making it through the day is actually a big deal. Whether you're here in person or watching from home today, I want you to get it firmly in mind what you can be proud of yourself about. Feeding the cat, walking the dog, offering someone a kind word or a smile. Think about it. What small thing can you be proud of yourself for? What often gets overlooked? Do you have it in your mind? It doesn't have to be big. One of the beautiful things about Mr. Rogers is he was always appreciating the small things. So if it's in your mind now, just hold it for a second and hear this. I'm proud of you. I hope you're proud of yourself too.
Every Mr. Rogers episode had music woven throughout, and it was all written by Fred himself. As a child, he was a musical prodigy, returning to his home from a concert or a Broadway play to immediately pick the tune out by ear on his family's piano. As a young adult, he studied music at Rollins College, where he was regularly recognized as the best in his class. Throughout his career, he wrote 200 songs and 14 operas. And his first opera that he wrote while still at Rollins was called Josephine the Short-Necked Giraffe. And it was in French. The songs in his program are short and memorable and a joy to repeat. The next song we are going to hear in person is a beautiful remake of one of his songs that we felt really spoke to how we feel here in this congregation. One of our greatest regrets about not having live music today is that our friends at home aren't going to hear these songs. We hope that if you're watching from home, that you might pause our video here and search a few Mr. Rogers songs to YouTube and Google songs like This Is My Home, I'm Proud of You, and others.
This is our home. Our friends are here. And even when they're not physically with us, we know that they're still out there and present in our imaginations. Part of this religious home is that we support each other in our joys and our sorrows. If you want to shine a light on your journey, you can share a joy or a sorrow in person by using these candle cards that are located on the back table. And if you'd like to share a joy or a concern from a distance, please email minister@hvuuc.org. We got an email candle card from Joseph Viola. It has now been 5 years, July 10th, 2019, since I got to ring the bell, signaling that my cancer treatment had ended. Still in remission and hoping to continue that path. May my story bring hope to others that may be on a similar journey. Sincerely, Joseph Viola. A candle card from a friend in the congregation. Dr. Ruth has died. She always had a close place in my heart. She was a trailblazing sex doctor, but I knew her from the children's show Between the Lions, where she helped upset letters learn to get along. As an adult, I learned she was a triumph of a woman. Thinking about Dr. Ruth today. And of course, I am very much thinking about all of our friends and members that are homesick today, wishing them a very speedy recovery. There are so many ways that we can care for each other, which include masking, staying updated on our boosters, staying home when we're sick, and being thoughtful about each other's needs. Let's keep on loving each other the best way that we can. And remember, if you need a little extra help from our congregation, you can reach out to us. And today I'm also thinking about the turmoil that's been rippling through the world, how things can feel scary sometimes, how it reminds me how much we need each other, how much the world needs your light. Each of you have something to give, something to add that will help us get one step closer to the beloved community. Your light is so important. Keep shining. Keep adding our light to each other to imagine a better, safer, more empathetic, more just and loving and equitable world. And let's do the small things we can knowing that we're not doing them alone. And so we come, bringing all that we are and everything that we carry to this table, a symbol of the spiritual home and the way that we care for each other. If you wish to light your own candle, please approach the side of the table that is closest to you, and a candle keeper will assist you. Please light the candles at the back of the table first so that no one has to reach over an open flame. And if you wish for us to light a candle for you, please raise your hand until I acknowledge you, and I will light a candle for you. And our community is so much larger than just those who are with us in the building this morning, and so we light a candle to hold space for those who are not physically present with us, but ever in our hearts. I like you just the way you are. As I've been preparing for this Sunday, reviewing so many television footage and reading The Good Neighbor, I was struck by how often I came across this message. I like you just the way you are. There's part of me that feels a little twinge of discomfort when I hear this message. When I was a small child, I heard this message quite a bit from the important adults in my life. I was lucky that way. But as a teenager, as a young adult, as an emerging leader, these messages dried up for me, like they do for everyone as they grow up. I think as a society, we make assumptions that only small children need that sort of patience and unconditional support. But I don't think that any of us really outgrow the need for this message, even though we all think we're supposed to. I like you just the way you are. Fred Rogers' biography revealed that in his childhood, growing up in a deeply altruistic family, that he became curious about how he could be a helper early on. His encounters with his grandfather made a special impression. The way Grandpa spoke to young Fred in a way that made him know he mattered and deserved kindness shaped his understanding of what kids need early in life. He carried passion for communicating with children to his studies of music in college, and when he went home on break, he discovered a new invention in the family living room: a television. He was immediately interested in how this new communication medium could be a tool for teaching, and chose to put off his seminary plans to go to New York and get a job working in the pioneering field of television production. It did not hurt that his father owned a large share of the company that was doing that work. He tested out some of his ideas. He pursued his love for puppets and even received Daniel Tiger as a gift from his first television producer. Then he went to seminary while still making television, and he studied with children's education expert Dr. Margaret McFarland. And all of his learning and theories of children's needs lined up so well with his patient, musical, immensely kind way of doing things. I like you just the way you are. Mr. Rogers always saw his work on television as ministry. When the Presbyterian elders in Pittsburgh tried to make Fred follow the standard path to ministry, cajoling him to give up his television show and get a job with a pulpit somewhere, his friend appeared before the council and said, "Look, here's an individual who has his pulpit proudly in front of the TV camera. His congregation are little people from the ages of about 2 or 3 on up to about 7 or 8. And this is a whole congregation of hundreds and thousands, if not millions of kids. And this is a man who has been authentically called by the Lord as much as any of you guys sitting out there. And it worked. And thank goodness for all of us that it did. Reverend Rogers' theological core was the very best of Christianity. Love your neighbor as yourself. There's a Bible story, the Good Samaritan, where some lawyer asks Jesus, well, who is my neighbor anyway? And Jesus responds by telling a story about a man who is laying on the side of the road, beaten, bloody, and robbed, and very much needing help, ignored by the priests and the lawyers who were too important and too busy for one man's suffering. And then it is a Samaritan, one of the second-class citizens of the Bible times, who sees this man in need and bandages his wounds and carries him away to get help, paying every expense himself. And after telling this story, Jesus asks, who is the real neighbor? And the answer is the Samaritan, the one who cares, the one who helps, and the one who needs the help. When Reverend Rogers calls us neighbor, there's no doubt what he means. He shows us that kindness and unconditional love that is ever present in his message, and his style has this theological underpinning. Love your neighbor as yourself, and everyone is our neighbor. I like you just the way you are. What would it mean to live in this thoughtful and compassionate way, to express real living love as often as we can, to see our neighbor everywhere we go, to be curious and accepting, and allow ourselves and others to make mistakes, and to speak with kindness as often as possible? Mr. Rogers' kindness did not keep him from pushing back at a world that was often unkind. When he was in seminary in the 50s and the 60s, the Presbyterian Church was splitting over gay rights, and Fred was clearly, though often quietly, on the side of accepting all people. Probably thinking about his friend who had come out to him as gay when Fred was trying really hard to set him up with a date on a date with a woman. He also, famously, put his feet in a kiddie pool with a black man during a time when swimming pools were segregated. And he once sued the KKK for using an impression of him to further their messages of hate. And everywhere that he went, if there was a child who needed a patient word or ran to him for a hug, all of the adults in the room just stopped mattering to him. Even when it completely derailed his interview with Oprah Winfrey. I'm going to go off script to tell you this anecdote because it's a good one and I think we have time. So this interview with Oprah Winfrey, he told the producers, don't let any children in the audience. And not because he was being a jerk, but because he knew that if there were kids there, he wouldn't be able to give a good interview. He'd be completely focused on the kids. And he got there, and there were families and kids excited to see him because, of course, the producers wouldn't be able to resist. And So they didn't get the interview they wanted. Instead, Mr. Rogers just sat there and talked to the kids the whole time. They were running up for hugs. He was giving them. He warned them. He said, if you let kids in there, it's not going to happen the way you want it to happen. And that just shows his heart, his priority, his calling. He understood what his purpose in life was, and I love that. In matters large and small, whether talking to an individual or taking on a controversial issue, justice, compassion, and love were woven together for Fred Rogers. For some of us, he's kind of a saint, right next to Dolly Parton, right? Yeah, kind of want to build an altar with Fred and Dolly on it, yeah. But he wouldn't want that, because saints feel ungraspable, like we cannot do what they do. And Mr. Rogers would tell us that anyone can be patient, anyone can be kind, anyone can be forgiving. We just have to try. And when we mess up, to say we're sorry and to try again, because everyone is our neighbor. And I like you, just the way you are. Mr. Rogers had the uncanny ability to imagine exactly the kinds of positive messages and unconditional love that a young person needs to hear. And I feel like there's an inner child in each of us that still needs to hear it sometimes. Think about everything you've heard. Think about how we're never too old to need such kindness. I'd like to hear us speak to our own selves and to each other this way more often. What does it feel like to get this much positive feedback and unconditional love? For me, it's funny how it can feel good and uncomfortable all at the same time. We all need these sorts of positive messages. So I want to invite you to take the note card that's in your bulletin and the pens at the end of the aisles and write a positive message to someone who needs it. You won't know who will get it, but whoever they are, they are your neighbor, because everyone is your neighbor, right? So take the card and start by writing, "Dear neighbor." We have extra cards. If you need it, raise your hand if you need an extra card. Write "Dear neighbor" at the top, and then just write a sentence or two of encouragement, the kind of thing you think Mr. Rogers would say to any of us. When you're done with the note, I want you to take the envelope in your bulletin and put your name and address on it. You will not get your own message, but you will be getting one that someone else has written today. But in order to receive that, you have to give us your address, which we will not save for anything else. We will only use it to mail your message of encouragement from your neighbor. If there are kids with you, check in with them to see if they need help writing their notes or their addresses. And if you need an extra card, please raise your hand and Sarah and I will pass them to you. If you're at home, open up your email and in the subject line, write "Dear neighbor," and email it to minister@hvuuc.org, and I'll make sure it gets to someone who needs it. And so we're going to take some time and some music to write some encouragement. And if you need a card or a pen or anything else, just raise your hand.
You can either leave your note cards on your seats or bring them to Reverend Tiffany by the door. Either way, we'll collect them and send your neighbor notes out soon. Our chalice extinguishing is a message from Mr. Rogers, not from his show, but in an interview near the end of his long career. You know, it happens so often. I walk down the street and someone 20 or 30 or 40 years old will come up to me and say, "You are Mr. Rogers, aren't you?" And then they will tell me about growing up in the neighborhood and how they're passing on to the children they know what they found to be important in our television work, like expressing their feelings through music and art and dance and sports and drama and computers and writing, and invariably we end our little time together with a hug. I'm just so proud of all of you who have grown up with us, and I know how tough it is some days to look with hope and confidence on the months and years ahead. But I would like to tell you what I often told you when you were much younger. I like you just the way you are. And what's more, I'm so grateful to you for helping the children in your life to know that you'll do everything you can to keep them safe and to help them express their feelings in ways that will bring healing in many different neighborhoods. It's such a good feeling to know that we're lifelong friends. Thank you for being with us today. We'd love if you could stay for coffee hour. We want to encourage you today to take your coffee and do coffee hour on the porch, as viruses don't spread so well in the open air. Also, choir rehearsal has been canceled for today. We always have more going on in this community than we can name from the pulpit on Sunday mornings. So please look at your bulletin or go to our website or Facebook page to see upcoming events, or leave your email address at the welcome table and check the box to receive our e-news. Please mark your calendar for Thursday, August 8th at 11 a.m. We will be unveiling a historical marker on our property titled, Freed African Americans Win First Inheritance Suit, a project several years in the making in partnership with the McKinney Center in Jonesboro. We're expecting some important local figures to be present as well as the press, so please come celebrate with us if your schedule will allow it. We would like to host a reception after the unveiling and need some food and cleanup volunteers. If you can help out with that, please email Peggy at fellowship@hvууc.org to volunteer. That's fellowship@hvууc.org. And also, mark your calendar for a very special concert that will be held here on Friday night, August 16th. Reggie Harris and Gray Greenway are a music act called Deeper Than the Skin. Deeper Than the Skin is an experience of singing and listening. It's an invitation to open your heart and mind to a story of shared humanity that resonates with your own. Two friends, one black, one white, one from the north, one from the south. Musicians, storytellers, students of history, and world travelers, born 3 days apart. Two separate narratives forged into one powerful friendship, aimed at finding common ground and helping others to do the same. Deeper Than the Skin brings together a remarkable journey that started 30 years ago and is now offering hope to people all over the nation. It's a presentation that ends with an open dialogue that moves the audience from emotion into action, that gives voice and direction to the question, what can I do? We are incredibly excited to be hosting Reggie and Greg. Be looking for news about ticket sales this week, along with more information about the time and the date. We hope you'll come, and we hope you'll bring a friend. We're about to have our closing song, ending the same way Mr. Rogers would end his time with his neighbors. This is also the time to collect the offering. Public television would always say that this programming is made possible by viewers like you. And it's equally true of this community that we're building here. When the plate passes by, we'd appreciate a little help so that we can keep building this spiritual home together. It's such a good feeling.
Thank you so much for your generosity this week and every week. May justice lead us to the calling of this moment, and may wonder meet us right where we're at. May we discover our collaborators, and our companions, and may love guide us on our journey of transformation. Blessed be, go in peace, and amen.